Okay, this is Whitey Willauer, and this is the next edition of Front Up, and I have a guest today, which I'd like to talk to, who ought to be very, very interesting, Carlengland. And Carl's all dressed up in his military uniforms as the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and you were flotilla commander of the Grant Point
yes.
flotilla at one time.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I am the immediate past.
Oh, you're the immediate past
flotilla commander.
Flotilla commander. And where is the flotilla located?
We meet at the Grant Point Coast Guard Station. So, and we are closely associated with Grant Point, so we meet there on a regular basis.
Now, how do I tell an auxiliary from a real coastie?
Okay, we are referred to as the silver side, and they are referred to as the gold side, and that is because our shoulder boards and other insignia are silver, and there's our gold. So you're silver, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of medals. These are combination of medals and service ribbons, and some from when I was on with the Navy, and some with the Coast Guard.
You flew for the Navy?
I flew for the Navy.
What did you fly?
I flew a couple of airplanes, a plane called the AJ-2 Savage, which was a twin-engine carrier-based bomber.
Oh, you've done carrier landings?
I did. And the second one was the A-3D, which Sky Warrior, which was also a carrier bomber. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's quite interesting. Yeah.
And then I was with many years with the Naval Reserve and flew transports. So we back and forth until I retired from the Navy, and then became affiliated with the Coast Guard Auxiliary.
Yeah.
And so now I'm flying with the Coast Guard Auxiliary.
So you fly for the Coast Guard Auxiliary?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And in the case of the Auxiliary, we fly our own airplanes, and we support the Coast Guard and fly missions for the Coast Guard.
You really do? Okay.
We really do.
Why doesn't the Coast Guard fly their own missions?
The Coast Guard does fly their own missions. The Coast Guard, however, is short-handed and short airplane, and they have a lot more missions to fly than they can do by themselves. So we are a force multiplier for the Coast Guard, as they refer to us.
So you really are interchangeable with the actual Coast Guard planes?
That is correct. We work for the Coast Guard Air Station Cape Cod. We are assigned missions by them and report to them. And basically, we fly the inshore patrols, and they fly offshore.
Really?
And
what's inshore? How far out?
We are allowed to go 25 miles offshore, but we typically don't go more than 5.
Okay.
So we fly around the, as I said, around primarily the ports, coastal waterways. That's our surveillance task. So we're looking for pollution in the harbors. We're looking for ice in the rivers and harbors. We're looking for things that might be unusual or out of place.
Now, how do you detect pollution in the harbor when you're flying way up high?
Well, first of all, we don't fly way up high.
Okay.
We typically fly at 1,000 feet. And it's actually easier to see pollution in the harbor from 1,000 feet than when you're down on the water.
Now, you trained to look for pollution?
We are trained. Yes, we do. There are many types of pollution and different types of oil spills and so forth, and so we are trained to spot and identify the various types of spills. And the same is true with ice. We're trained to be able to report on different types of ice and the percentage coverage and so forth in the rivers and harbors. Then, of course, we do get occasionally a task to work on a search and rescue case as well, but that's not a routine patrol.
So how do you have any enhancements? In other words, if you're looking for pollution, do you have any different types of instruments that could detect pollution?
No, we are equipped with cameras so that we can record what we see, but no, beyond that, it's purely a visual sighting.
Yeah, because we've had some algae blooms here in Nantucket Harbor which occurred in August of the past year, and it was
yes.
sort of a red-colored algae bloom. And is there any way of enhancing that so that you could see it more easily, or?
Well, you can enhance the photograph. So you with post-processing of the camera of the mm-hmm. shots from the patrol cameras that we have, mm-hmm. You can use filters to bring out different colors.
Oh, you'd use filters on the camera or filters?
No, we filter it electronically.
Oh, okay.
With a computer.
Okay, so you've got digital cameras that you use.
Digital cameras, and then we post-process the film to enhance it to depending on what we want to see. But so we can enhance color, contrast, things of that sort. So we have observers who are trained to do that. So we fly with a 2-man or a 3-man crew with a pilot and an observer, and we have observers who are trained to use the cameras and then to process the results.
So do you shoot, when you're flying a mission, do you shoot through the windows, or do you have the camera located outside of the craft?
Most cases we shoot through the windows. Some airplanes do have the capability of opening a window.
Okay.
But most of us have fixed canopies on the airplane, so we shoot. But that doesn't present a problem as long as you keep the canopy clear.
So you'd be flying the airplane, and your observer would be taking the pictures.
That is correct.
Yeah. I'm doing this for a purpose, you might, because we have had problems with this rust tide on Nantucket, and we're asking some of the private pilots or the commercial pilots, if they spot it, to let us know.
Okay.
And then we would like to then take pictures of it once it occurs, because we're finding it not only did it occur up harbor, but then in the Court of the Bay outside of the harbor. And it would be very useful. Now, could that fall within the Coast Guard Auxiliary's mission to look for that kind of pollution?
It certainly could.
Yeah.
I mean, basically the Coast Guard, as you know now, is part of the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
It's not a military organization per se, but part of our tasking is to support other government agencies, which in this case, would
be in the municipality.
Right, municipalities.
Yeah.
So that certainly is within the scope of what we would be doing. It's mostly a question of a heads up to say, hey, we suspect that there may be a problem here, and could you make this part of your routine patrol? And because we normally are patrolling the harbors more specifically, but going up harbor and looking for things that'd be perfectly fine too.
Yeah. Well, it was occurring not only here but in other harbors, the same algae bloom, and it was attacking the scallop spat. We think we tested that, and we suspect it may have been caused by overloading of nitrates from the lawns, and just too much.
Of course, yes.
So and it would be interesting to be able to coordinate with the scientists that are on the water sheet, which. So I'm building an objective here. Anyway,
Fine.
Well, tell me about some of the other missions that you fly.
Well, as I said, we are the typical mission is called what we call the PWCS, Port, Waterway, and Coastal Surveillance. So that really describes it, is that we are, but what we are looking for in addition to pollution, we are watching for and noting all of the larger ships that come in and photographing them. The photographs then go into a data bank that the Coast Guard maintains, so that for each vessel they like to have as many photographs as possible for the ocean-going vessels, particularly for the coastal freighters and coastal oilers. And so we keep an eye out for them and photograph them wherever we see them.
So they could ID them, identify them later on. In other words, you get a photograph, and then they can put it in a database and
Yes,
determine if this is friend or foe, or
yes, that they like to have a good database so that if they ever have to board the ships,
Yeah.
they can brief their people in advance, particularly if they're going to do vertical envelopment, which is guys coming in, dropping from the helicopter.
I see.
So they want to know what the ships look like. So we do a lot of photographic work for the Coast Guard, from as straightforward as we had a recent mission to photograph all the lighthouses up and down the coast that we're involved with, which is from the Connecticut-Rhode Island border to the Canadian border. And there are a lot of lighthouses, some that are quite remote, and they wanted updated photographs of the lighthouses for National Lighthouse Day.
Oh, I see.
So we did that. And we get tasked for a variety of different photographic missions because we are equipped with a number of special purpose cameras that we can, so that we can take the kinds of pictures they want. Okay.
So you can zoom in on these?
Yes, we have cameras with very long focal length lenses so that we can get close up.
I see. I see. Now, didn't you do something with a tuna fleet or something like that?
We were tasked to watch the tuna fleet recently. There was a heavy concentration of tunas and tuna fishing on Stellwagen Bank,
Yeah.
and then also further out to the southwest of Chatham.
Yeah.
And so we were keeping an eye on who was fishing, and
Can you determine who is fishing from that altitude, or do you come right down?
No, you can identify a boat pretty well from 1,000 or 1,500 feet.
I say.
No difficulty at all with a good camera, the type of camera we have. So we can identify the name of the boat and the registration of the boat from flying up.
Really?
At 1,000,
Does it have to go
1,500
into a
feet.
database someplace else, or you got a database?
We transmit the images to the Coast Guard intelligence group, and they process it from there.
And let you know?
No, we just take the pictures.
Oh, you're just the picture takers, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me more about the Coast Guard Auxiliary on Nantucket, some of the other things that they do outside of the aviation.
Well, I think the primary role of the auxiliary is the boating community, the pleasure boating community, and so we are very focused on boating safety, and we teach an annual course on boating safety, which is given this year will be given at the Coast Guard station, Brant Point.
Yeah.
And then we conduct seminars like the Paddle Smart, which is aimed at teaching people to be safety aware in kayaks and canoes. So we have a public education program which is pretty aggressive. In addition to that, we do also supplement the work of the folks at Station Brant Point. We have a number of auxiliarists who actually stand watch. And they will come in for typically a 4-hour session in the morning, a 4-hour session in the afternoon, and relieve the coasties to go and do their thing, which is to train in the boats and so forth. So we have people that are doing that. During the summertime, particularly when there are boating events, like the Fagawi race or 4th of July or whatever, we have people that are out on patrol to supplement the Coast Guard boats and the harbor master's boats. So we do regular patrols. So I think those are the real focus. We also do inspection of boats from a safety point of view. We inspect to make sure that the boats are fully equipped, properly equipped, and then we can provide the boater with a safety decal, which if is posted on his boat, then means the Coast Guard knows he has been inspected. We don't have to stop him and have a look.
Does that reduce their insurance premiums?
No, it does not reduce their insurance. What it does do is gives them essentially gives the Coast Guard knowledge that that boat has been inspected and it is fully equipped with life preservers and all of the other gear that are supposed to be on board.
Good. So. Well, that's all very interesting.
Yeah.
Really, that's great. Now, aren't you, one last question, aren't you fairly high up in the hierarchy in the aviation aspect? I mean, you're not only representing Nantucket, but aren't you representing the...
Yes, I am on the coast, the first district air staff. So we have where the typical Coast Guard auxiliary group, like the people at Brant Point, report to the Coast Guard sectors. In our case, it's at Woods Hole. The aviation, as I said, reports to the air station coast at Cape Cod and up to the district level in Boston. So we have a district air staff, and I'm a member of that. So.
You're a district air, okay, that's great.
So yes, I do have a collateral duty.
One more last question. How many people are qualified on Nantucket to do your kind of work, and how many aircraft do we have?
We presently have 2 aircraft.
Yeah.
I have my plane, and Al Peterson, who's the airport manager, has a plane which is also in the auxiliary. We have a 3rd one which we expect to bring online shortly, and then we have and then we have other people who are trained as observers, who can fly as our regular crew.
Yeah, and the Coast Guard pays for your fuel? The
Coast Guard pays for our fuel, and they provide an allowance for maintenance, just as they do with the boats.
And do they give you a fancy uniform?
No, but they give you authority to buy your own uniform.
Okay, well, that's great. Anyway, I appreciate very much having you here.
My pleasure.
And I think it's wonderful, the volunteer work that all of you perform at Brant Point and around the periphery of Nantucket and up and down the coast. So,
thank you.
Carl, thank you very much for coming.
It's my pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you being here, and I hope we'll have you back again soon. With some wonderful stories. And I'm going to relay the ability that we have as far as monitoring the waters in and around Nantucket for pollution and such things like that, if I may.
You may.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
It seems like 100 years since I reached out to dry